go for Jake, fouled round, and he's got it, and he's up and over the wall.
Alec Thomas on the run, Alec on the ball. What a catch, Alec Thomas! Oh, wow!
Seawall to strike away, here he comes. Cave, a fly ball to right field, over is Carroll. He's got it, and the Arizona Diamondbacks are headed to the World Series.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to episode 6 of the Snakescast. Today, we have a very special guest, somebody that's been in the Diamondbacks content space for a little bit, former Diamondbacks on Sports Illustrated, and overall general baseball nerd, Aaron Hughes. Aaron, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you getting me in here for episode 6. I'm honored.
Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. I think we met, what was it, 2 years ago, maybe? 2 or 3 years ago?
I think it was, well, we met a while ago and then we ran into each other I think it was at a Cubs game last year.
Yeah.
You reached out and I popped down. But, it's wonderful to talk and, I always love talking baseball. So,
Yeah, there'll be a lot of ball knowledge shared here today on this episode, without a doubt. We have quite a few topics to discuss, some of them a little bit more hot than others. I think one of the biggest topics that we'll talk about and kind of what everybody's wondering is how we're going to construct the bullpen. There's been a couple little onesie twosie signings here, the classic, minor league deal here, minor league deal there. But nothing really major. And I think with Mike Hazen making comments earlier this week that are a little confusing as far as how he wants to address the bullpen. What do you think the angle is here? Do you think we do what we did last year and you get, the stack of minor league deals in early February and that's what you call it? Or do you think they're setting up for something more intense than that?
so yeah, just jumping right in. I mean, we've already seen somewhat of that collection of minor league deals, but I think that relative to last year, we also have a lot more guys who are on the cusp of either already being in the bullpen or guys who will make their debut this year. We didn't really have that last year. I mean, we picked up Juan Murillo, but that was just about it. This year, we have some more guys who I'm assuming we will talk about later. But we've already seen some of those minor league deals come in. We have the acquiring of Jonathan Loaisiga, but I almost guarantee that we aren't done yet, and that we will see, I'd say, at least one major league move come through. I feel like the wording there has been pretty safe, but whether that is a leverage guy or if that's more of like a rounding out piece, that's yet to be seen. So
Yeah. Or do you think that maybe they're feeling more comfortable with what we have now, with all the guys that are kind of that dare you call it quadruple A level? The guys that are kind of on the cusp of being major league, very good triple A guys. Do you think we're more comfortable now than we were last year, and maybe the focus might be starting pitching, maybe grabbing another starter that can eat innings and take stuff away from the bullpen, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, when it comes to starting pitchers, I feel like the team is more comfortable than with the relief corps. And reasonably so, I'd say. After they got Merrill Kelly, you will get Corbin Burns back at some point this year, which is, nice to have. There's been some rumors about like Gallen returning. I don't know if I see that happening, but I feel like when it comes to the bullpen, it's something that Mike Hazen's very cognizant of how terrible the team has been in that facet the last few years. And I don't think that he's content, but I think that uh, he is of the opinion that he shouldn't overpay for a reliever, especially with how volatile those positions are. Um, there's a lot of guys who I think have made some improvements, but I feel like fans will be a little disappointed in terms of who we will end up with in the bullpen, especially with the fact that AJ Puck and Justin Martinez are out and will be out for at least a good portion of this year. They won't be close to ready for opening day, even though they've made some strides. Um, so I think fans may be a little disappointed with how content Mike Hazen is, but I don't think that he's ready to just throw the prospects on the table and say, let it ride, no safety net.
Yeah, it's going to be a good mix, I feel. The
Hmm.
thing I get worried about, same as you, with the relievers being volatile, the one I think of the most is 2024 when we got Dylan Floro. Um, Absolutely, when the deal happened, was like, man, that's fantastic. Happened, I think, within the last minute of the trade deadline. It's like Dylan Floro has
Hmm.
been a great reliever for such a long time. He's going to do well here. I'm happy that we traded away. I think it was Andres Chaparros who we gave up, who
Yes.
was basically a Yankees minor league free agent. Um, and so basically give up somebody that wasn't, really developed on the team for a major league level, basically at that point, high leverage guy. And I was thinking we all know how that turned out
I
was
mean, that was an
abysmal.
absolute disaster. I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of what we gave up, it was basically nothing. But at the same time, Floro, who was meant to be a decent addition at least, ended up, I mean, who knows, with the way the tiebreaker wound up, that basically ended up costing you the postseason.
Yeah.
Not that you can pin it on him, of course, but
hmm Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I worry about trades for relievers. It's it just I think mainly because of the Dylan Floro incident, I almost have like a very reservation against it. Like please don't trade for a reliever. Um,
yeah.
but in the past, it's kind of the route that Mike Hazen has gone. You look at like Paul Sewald and stuff like that, right? Like we have gotten some good pitching in that instance, and Paul Sewald helped a ton in 2023, regardless of how it turned out. Um, so yeah, I think you're right. I think it'll be a good mix. I don't think we'll get that. Obviously, Sarah Anthony Dominguez signed with the White Sox, which kind of blew my mind what they're doing this offseason. But like, I don't think we're going to get a reliever of that AAV, I will say. I'm not going to say that quality because, like I said, relievers are volatile. Anybody can really be a reliever of that quality. But yeah, I think you get a slew of minor league deals. You get a low level probably trade, something like we did with Dylan Floro, where it's a prospect for a reliever who's on their final year of a deal. And then I think you go out and you sign one or two of the veteran arms that are left on the market to minor league deals. I've mentioned Andrew Chafin in the past. I know he's getting a little up there. I know this would be his 100th stint with us. But he had a really good season last year.
Yeah,
And
surprisingly,
yeah,
big bounce back for him.
and I think with all of the minor league talent in AAA right now, if you haven't taken a look at that rotation and that relief core, it's
Oh
insane.
yeah.
I
Hmm.
think signing a guy like Chafin makes sense from a aspect of helping the younger generation, also being available to be at that major league level if needed, or depending on how his spring goes. I think Loizaga is a good pickup. I think Beeks should come back for sure. I think Beeks did really, really well for us. Another guy you can probably get for $1 million. I don't think he's out there holding out for 5 to 10 mil.
I
Um,
feel like Jalen Beeks is when you re-sign him, it's almost like Merrill Kelly, where it's like, okay, you're holding the line almost.
yeah.
It's like the minimum that you need to do to kind of get back to where you were. Um, so I feel like we're looking at almost like even though it turned out pretty horrendously, a Kendall Graveman-esque move, somebody who was high leverage, has high upside, um, but has maybe regressed a lot. It's or dealt with injuries. I mean, that's exactly what Loizaga is. But I feel like we could maybe see another move of that ilk. Uh,
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with high reward. Very low risk deals like that. Shelby Miller, I think, was one of them
mhm,
for us. And yeah, something I also talked about with Riley from D-Bex Prospects. Um, we still have, like you and I just talked about, like those quadruple A guys. Those guys that are in
mhm.
between right now. Um, Christian Montes de Oca has made strides with his back surgery. I'm sure we will see plenty of him this year. Um, Hayden Dirk is somebody that him and I both really, really are paying attention to. Climbed from Hillsborough all the way up to Reno in the span of one season.
Mhm.
Um, and then you have a guy like Gilbert Diaz, who kind of really had a great falling off, unfortunately, from a starting
Yeah.
pitching standpoint. Fall from grace, if you will, back to Amarillo, and then You look at his winter league stats, and he's prime Mariano Rivera in a closer role over there. So, maybe seeing him in a closing or a relief role, seeing how his spring plays out. Uh,
Yeah, Gilbert Diaz, as a starter, his numbers were a little bit, you were looking for some regression there, but the way it hit him was almost like, I mean, it was unbelievable.
yeah.
And while winter league stats certainly aren't, you can't take him at face value, but what he's done is impressive, and he is an incredible talent and someone that the team believes in. So I would certainly look for him to get opportunities.
Yeah, Gilbert Diaz is someone definitely trying to keep an eye on for sure. And of course, Juan Burgos, Brandon Garcia,
Mm.
you look at Andrew Hoffman, right? All these guys that floated back and forth that have a little bit of major league experience already. We're probably all expected to try to take a major leap forward. Brandon Garcia is definitely one of them. I think he can definitely be a high
Hmm.
leverage guy. He looked very good last year.
Yes.
So I am optimistic about where the bullpen stands, even if we didn't do anything. I think it will be better than last year, just based off the experience that we have. But I think, making the comments that, we're gonna have a go at this playoff thing again. I think you got to find another piece at least to add to this bullpen.
Yeah, when it comes to Brandon Garcia as well, when he came over from Seattle, previous to the trade, he had a lot of experience in a starting role. I feel like with the Diamondbacks, just the way that the team pans out, the way our depth is, he almost is better as a reliever, a better fit, even though he has the ability to give him a little bit of length, depending on how stretched out he is. But the stuff he has, and from a left-handed standpoint, I mean, that's something that it's like gold for Arizona. Um, and he's certainly a guy who I think, could develop into a high leverage option. I mean, Andrew Hoffman really, out of the guys who came over, almost shined the most. That kick change was phenomenal, and it's something that they've looked at in other prospects and guys. They really like that changeup, and especially in guys that they've looked to acquire. Um, and I think a name that you didn't mention in that group, but also came over in trades, and one that I'm almost more excited to get a look at in the future here, is Hunter Cranton, who they also
Definitely.
got from Seattle, and who may have the highest leverage ceiling of any of those guys. Someone who I've gotten quite a few messages about, and who I've had guys send me texts saying like, "Oh man, I'm really bummed that you got this guy," but he's really like, if you take a look at some of the things he's done, he looks phenomenal. His stuff is incredible. He's dealt with injuries,
Yep.
but I'd say almost certainly will debut next year. Um, and it's just a matter of, is this stuff going to translate to the majors right away? Is he going to be able to make that jump? And if he does, can he stick in that high leverage role? Because if so, oh boy, you've got some big weapons there at the back end.
Yeah, Granton looked fantastic, and like you said, injury kind
Hmm.
of kind of kind of derailed him there for a little bit. And I think the people that were initially upset about the selling off of last year's team, obviously, right? Like we had so much talent on that team. We knew that we just weren't gonna happen down the stretch. Too many injuries. So the smart thing to do is to sell a team off, and I think people are really going to see that come to fruition this year. They're going to see lots of input from guys like Juan Burgos or maybe even Hunter Granton towards the back end. Another guy that Riley and I had talked about, Ashton Izzy, right, coming over as
Oh yeah,
well, looking fantastic for
phenomenal.
Hillsborough. Just, I think the theme that Hazen took last year were guys that were going to have very, very high ceilings and be very fast
Mhm.
movers. Because you're looking, like I said, in 2 to 3 years' time, you're looking at the major league roster and you're saying, okay, well, Kelly's not going to be there anymore.
Yeah,
Unless they sign him
well,
to, unless he becomes Justin Verlander, which is very hard to do in Major League
right.
Baseball, and stick around through your mid 40s. But you're looking at Kelly not being there. You're looking at Eduardo Rodriguez being on the last year of his
Hmm.
deal, and all of a sudden you're left with Fott and Nelson, and that's kind of where you're at.
Right. And
Um, s-
now you've managed to revitalize that. You have guys, Brat. and Drake, as well as Hageman and some other guys in there that join a group of high impact talents like Daniel Egan, who looks really good. There's some other guys who I have an eye on as well, who I'm sure we'll get to later when we talk about the prospect group. But there's quite a lot of things to be excited about, and the Diamondbacks are taking that very seriously. They're taking the development very seriously. They've made quite a few changes to the pitching development side of things this winter. They've changed quite a few of the names of the organizational development staff, um, something which I'm not sure if you discussed previously before, but it's certainly exciting, and it's been long a big gripe of mine that we haven't seen as much focus on the pitching development side when that's something that, if you're able to nurture those arms and really help them develop into these guys. I mean, the control that you get on these guys just coming up from the minors compared to trading away the farm to get a high impact starter, which you haven't really seen in front of your own eyes. There's a huge difference there, and I mean some of the talent that you have here is really special. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I think probably was maybe seven or eight
Hmm.
people. Basically, the whole shift change for the pitching development side.
Oh yeah.
Um, and Reno has Doug Drabeck, Cy Young Award winner for their pitching staff there. And yeah, it's very hard. I feel like to look at now what Hazen has kind of played out in the minor league role from a pitching standpoint, and really be like, okay, like it's actually very exciting. Like regardless
Yeah.
of, and I hate to be like this, but regardless of what happens this year, the next few years of Diamondbacks baseball are going to look very, very exciting especially from a pitching standpoint.
Yes, absolutely. The minor league system has almost changed focus from these high upside position players that we've seen in the last few years to now there's some arms to be really really excited about. And there's a few guys who I want to bring to your attention in a little bit, which there's some guys which I covered quite a bit in my writing, which have only blossomed more, and who I'm really looking forward to watching in 2026.
Yeah, we kind of slowly shifted away from the Corbin Carrollites, like the short,
Hmm.
speedy guys. I feel like our minor league teams were littered with Corbin Carroll all over the
Yeah.
place. That was
Yeah,
kind of the theme of the past few years of drafting.
they still
Um,
exist,
yeah,
but
they do.
it's few and far between now.
Yeah, I think there's kind of more of a shift to more of a power standpoint from a batting
Hmm.
perspective, which is great, especially
Oh, love
building
it.
confidence in ballparks like Amarillo and Reno. Like you can mash there, and even
Hmm.
Hillsboro's new ballpark basically turned 180 degrees away from or with the wind, as opposed
Hmm.
to the wind blowing in through the outfield. So I think hitting development is something that's going to change naturally as well. Um, and with that in mind, who are you looking forward to kind of helping out at a major league level from a hitting aspect? Because I know, we've heard a lot about
Ooh,
Ryan Waldschmidt, very fast mover in and of himself. He was a very
right.
polished player when he got to the minor leagues. So obviously, I 100% believe even if he's not on the opening roster, we will see Ryan Waldschmidt in a Diamondbacks uniform this
Yeah.
season. But who else are you looking towards to kind of maybe make that leap this year from a
I mean, the
perspective?
easy answer is Tommy Troy. He's almost a shoo-in to make that jump, if not for opening day, very shortly after. We were talking about him as a potential September call-up, before, of course, there were some injuries that kind of forced their hand there.
Yeah.
Um, but Ryan Waldschmidt, very exciting. Tommy Troy isn't exactly the power name that you were trying to get at. I think when it comes to power, a guy like AJ Vukovic, maybe,
Yep.
who, he's been in the system for quite a while now, but he is still a name who, Vuk is still, he's got some pop. He can play the outfield. So definitely a name to keep an eye on, especially with some of the outfield holes that we have at the moment. if they don't do much to address that. Uh, Another guy, I mean, Ivan Melendez, of course. But we've talked about him for years, and the upside that he has, but also the clear issues that he's still had to work through. It's always tricky to say if a transition to Chase Field is going to help or hurt that, especially with the leap in pitching that they go from Reno to Arizona, obviously.
Yeah, you never know.
Um,
You never know how a prospect is going to
right.
flourish at the major league level, and that's when we traded Davison De Los Santos, and everybody was
Mhm.
upset. Hey, this guy's hitting 30 home runs. Like, why are we trading him away for? Like
It's
you don't know how that's going to transition at the major league level. You
mhm.
really don't. We've seen people that have flourished at a minor league or an international level come to us and not do so well. Well, Yasmani Tomas is one that really comes to light.
Yeah.
It's you never know. And Diamondbacks took a gamble with Paul Goldschmidt. He made a leap from Double
Mhm.
A Mobile all the way up to Diamondbacks, right? And that obviously turned into a Hall of Fame career. So
Right.
you never know
That
which
might be
direction it's going to go.
like the last great example of that kind of leap
Yeah,
for Arizona. Um, but there's quite a lot of names in there. But like we were just talking about, a lot of the names that we're looking at for debuts this year, and especially for high impact debuts this year, are on the pitching front.
yeah, I agree. And to your point, right, looking at the outfield and seeing if they're going to address it. If they don't address the outfield,
Mhm.
right now you're looking at Corbin Carroll and right, which is cemented. You're looking at Alec
Mhm.
Thomas in center, which I think is cemented at this point now that Jake McCarthy is over in Colorado.
Yeah.
Left field's interesting. You're looking at Blaze Alexander, I think is the tentative guy
Yeah.
for left field. Um, but that
Jordan
leaves
Lawler as well.
yeah,
I would throw him in there.
that leaves your depth wide open. You got
Mm.
Jordan Lawler, who's already on the 40 man that can fill in any of those roles. Tommy Troy's a good one that can also play the outfield. Um, you're looking at maybe Christian Robinson pushing through. He's kind of at that point I think. AJ Vukovic. So I think interestingly enough, we will see a very high level position player prospect debut this year.
Mhm.
That I think is going to come from the outfield.
Right.
Uh,
And
one,
and that's on me for not mentioning K-Rob in that
no,
discussion
you're
as
you're good.
well. But yeah, I feel like those are some names that we'll see likely before they break the glass on Waldschmidt, as much as he's been in the conversation this year and as much as I and everybody else would love to see him. And maybe he will come up earlier in the year, but I feel like there are some other names who we will see take a
Yeah.
leap as well.
And as a general manager, right, the service time manipulation is a real thing. You don't want to lose
Hmm.
out on an next year of Ryan Waldschmidt. And let's say kind of like Jordan Lawler has been up and down. We've kind of lost some service time with him, and him making the leap back and forth. But you don't want to do the same thing to Waldschmidt, right? You don't want to lose a year of Ryan Waldschmidt if he's going to be the next Barry Bonds per se over there
Yeah.
in left field. So, um, but with that in mind, right, the as it stands now, the major league roster from a position player standpoint is pretty much set, I would say.
Mm.
I don't expect them to make many more moves on that side of the ball unless something crazy comes through, which knowing Mike Hazen at this point, random things tend to happen at this point of the year. Um,
I feel like there is still opportunity for a move on the right-hand first base side.
yeah.
But I feel like that's almost the extent of things. Maybe a depth move for the outfield, like we were talking about.
Yeah,
But
and I think everybody's leaning more towards that Paul
yeah,
Goldschmidt return, which makes sense for the Diamondbacks. I think he's come out and said he wants a full-time role.
yeah.
I think he'll have that in the desert for sure. Um, but I think at this point you're running it back with a very young squad again. But a lot of people took a lot of leap forwards last year. Geraldo Perdomo had an unbelievable year. Corbin Carroll with another unbelievable year. Ketel Marte, of course, when he was healthy and here was fantastic. Who do you think is due for a major leap forward this year that's not those three?
Um, in terms of the position player side, I feel like every year people have kind of coined Gabriel Moreno as having that power breakout finally. because you see him for these couple week stints where he hits like 4 home runs, and then it's like,
Mhm.
whoa, okay, is this it? And then an injury happens or something to derail him. So I feel like he is an easy pick for that. I'd also say Tim Tawa. I would really
Yeah.
like to see him get a lot more opportunity. He really kind of showed some good things before. The he did have some issues as well, some flaws in his game, but he's super athletic. He can play basically any position on the diamond. Maybe save for catcher, but I'm sure he'd tell you that he can go do that too.
Yeah.
Um, but he's quite an exciting name. And then I think the last name that I'd kind of want to throw into that bunch of taking a leap and maybe getting some more production than you'd think out of him. I think Nolan Arenado,
Yeah.
they went out and got him. We haven't really mentioned him on the show here so far. But with the year that he had last year, transitioning to a far more friendly to right-handed power hitters ballpark in Chase Field. Um, I'm interested to see what they can get out of him, and obviously it's a defense first move. But I know that the offensive coordinators and the staff have already been, they're gonna get right in there, and he's gonna work as hard as possible to get himself back on his feet and move back towards that future Hall of Fame case that everybody's been talking about Nolan Arenado for the last years.
Yeah, I can imagine, having a full no trade clause and being in such a
Mhm.
baseball town like St. Louis, it's probably one of the best baseball towns to be in.
Mhm.
Um, to waive it for the Arizona Diamondbacks definitely means something to him. And if I was a trade candidate and I'm looking at this Diamondbacks team, right, you have all these young players, right? You have, like I said, Geraldo Perdomo, you got Corbin Carroll, um, Alec Thomas, who's had good flashes that I hope is one of my clicks to make a big leap forward this year with more full playing time out there in center. You're looking at the squad, Gabriel Moreno, the young pitching staff, and that has to be attractive for a veteran guy that's looking for his first championship, similar to that of like Evan Longoria, right? Except I think there's a little bit more upside here with Nolan Arenado. I think the power's still there. I think change in scenery will be good for him. Chase Field, I think, will be good for him. And yeah, I think Nolan Arenado will. I'm not saying he's going to be back to Colorado, 30 plus home runs, 7, 8 WAR guy, but I think 20 home runs is feasible for him. I think,
Mhm.
that 80, 90 RBI range is feasible for him, depending on where they put him in the lineup. The glove will be there. I expect him to be a big part of the lineup as well.
I mean, if you put him sixth, the amount of runs that he's going to be able to drive in, or at least the opportunities he'll have, is going to be pretty high. Um, so he's definitely a guy that I'm really excited about seeing in that role. Um, I also think, as just a veteran guy, that's going to help a lot. But definitely what you mentioned about him waiving the no trade clause to go to Arizona, not only does that paint the Diamondbacks in a good light, but seeing him deny a trade to Houston, who has the Crawford boxes, which are
Mm.
notorious for being helpful to a right-handed hitter like that, and instead choosing to come to Chase Field, which at times can be much more friendly as a doubles park. Um, it's definitely, I'd say, more positive on the development side there, and him liking the identity of this young team, even though some people may say that this team's almost a shell of that 2023 roster that we all fell in love with. I think it shows that there is a lot to be excited about here.
In my opinion, and you look at it on paper, I think from an offensive standpoint, this team's better than 2023 in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
it's more
Yeah.
polished. I
Hmm.
think what people forget, and I've said this before, we weren't meant to be in that World Series that year. That
No.
was the year following 2024 was probably like our window opening.
Yes.
2023 was very much I don't want to call it flash in the pan, but it was
Hmm.
very much we were hot at the right time, and we built off that. And it's because of guys like people that have been there before, like Evan Longoria, I think was a big part to play in that. Even though the offensive production wasn't there for him, he's at the end of his career. But I think he had a major part to play in us pushing through that because we had all these young guys. Corbin Carroll was a rookie. Geraldo Perdomo was year two. Alec Thomas,
Right.
Jake McCarthy, all these young guys. Brandon Pfaadt throwing gems against the Phillies in their home
Yeah.
ballpark in the NLCS.
As a rookie.
Yeah, as a rookie, I think guys like Evan Longoria had parts to play in that, and I think Nolan Arenado brings the same thing, and I think you'll see more of those stretches of good baseball because of it this season.
Sure. And I mean, in 2023, it was also the kind of thing. I mean, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. was he was a throw-in in the Gabriel Moreno
Yeah,
trade. And he had a fantastic season that I don't think anybody was expecting that level of production that
all-star.
they ended up relying on him for. Not to mention, I mean, Tommy Pham coming through, and especially the bullpen in that case. I mean, between Paul Sewald and Andrew Saalfrank coming up and being untouchable.
Mhm.
His only flaws being the bunch of walks. Uh, and of course Ryan Thompson. So
Waiver pickup,
2023 was waiver pickup
waiver
from the
pickup.
Rays of all
Yeah,
people, giving him a taste of their
the
medicine.
pitching lab.
Uh, that was what made 2023 special, and it really shows that as much as you can build up this quote unquote super team that you want to, like we did in 2024, like we did in 2025, getting Corbin Burns, getting Josh Naylor, getting Gino Suarez, um, Jordan Montgomery, Eduardo Rodriguez. I can go on and on with these names that we've picked up that everyone was saying this is going to be the thing to get us over the edge. Jock Peterson, Randall Grichuk. You can keep rattling them off, and none of those moves were what put him over the top. Sometimes that move is just going to be letting your young guys develop, letting that team chemistry do some heavy lifting, and the right mix of timing and chemistry and a bit of luck and your young players that you believe in taking that next step forward and becoming stars. I think that can do a lot more for you at times than investing 20 million, 25 million a year in the wrong place.
I think it's kind of the his chemistry is kind of the history of Arizona sports. You look at it, any Arizona sports team starts to do well, and I think the general manager is like, we need to buy all this talent,
Yeah.
really build off of this, and it never works out. And then it
Yeah.
goes back to the chemistry thing, the vibes thing. That's when it works out. And Phoenix Suns are a great example. They
Oh
basically
yeah.
built a super team of the past few years
Mhm.
that did not work out after they had saw some success and made it to the finals. The Diamondbacks are a great example. Had a success in 23. It was like, okay, we just spent on this. The Cardinals, I have no words for. The Coyotes,
You can't even
yeah,
use them for that.
yeah.
It's never gotten that far.
Unfortunately, the Coyotes don't exist anymore. So, um, but yeah, that's kind of the history of Arizona sports. Is our identity. I feel like ever since I've been alive has been chemistry. When we see teams really vibe well together, that's when they do well. I'd look at the '09 Cardinals, stuff like that. That team was a vibe. 2023 Diamondbacks, that team was a vibe. The '07 Diamondbacks was a vibe. That was a weird vibe, but it was a vibe. Um, so yeah, I expect this team to be more of a 2023-esque style season. I think obviously tack on probably 10 more wins to that, just based off of what our expectations are. But I expect us to do some good things, whether it looks like that or not on paper.
Oh yeah. Um, yeah, and I guess that kind of pushes us into the next area of discussion, which is yeah, how's this team gonna improve on last year?
Yeah, I think the big thing of how we're going to improve on last year is I look at the injured list, to be honest with you. I look at what's been done in the offseason, and I think we'll have the best trade deadline in the history of sports because all these guys are going to come back at that time. So, you're looking at Corbin Burns, who's ahead of schedule, obviously having a Cy Young pitcher who's in his, early 30s coming back to you midway through the season is a huge push. Um, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who becomes Barry Bonds every once in a while. Same thing. I think I made a post the other day about some bold predictions that I had for this coming
Mhm.
season. I think one of my bold predictions was Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is going to hit 20 home runs in the back half.
Oh
It's
wow.
going to happen. And I can't remember if
I
it's
like
2020.
that.
Yeah, I think it's 2021. I think it was 84 games that he played. He hit 20 something home runs for Toronto.
Yeah.
Just an insane number. And you've seen him play. He has that pop. I
He's
mean, when he gets up,
streaky,
yeah, I think it's possible.
and that's exactly what you need at times.
Yeah. So you have a guy like Lourdes Guerrero Jr. is going to come back. I don't know I'm sure his role will be more designated hitter-esque than it will be in the outfield to start,
Mm.
which is fantastic. You're looking at Puck and Martinez potentially past the All-Star break, coming back. You're looking at Blake Walston, Tommy Henry.
And the big boy, Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I'm excited from that standpoint. I think that's what's going to make the big push for us. I think as long as you build the depth the way you're building it, I think we'll be fine. From a fan perspective, I think if
mhm.
you're 500 through the All-Star break, I think you have a good chance of making the playoffs. From a my own personal perspective, of course, I'd love to be way above that, but
Right.
um, I think it's very feasible the Diamondbacks make it back to the postseason next year. That the Dodgers might win 140 games, um, so I think wild card's more the goal. But I think I look at San Diego, I look at San Francisco. I'm not going to look at Colorado, and you see what's being done, and it's like the Diamondbacks are kind of cooking this offseason compared to their friends other than LA. So
Right. And I really like that sentiment as well. I mean, you look at San Francisco, and I mean, sure, they've definitely had a little bit more flashy moves, and maybe they'll go pick up like a Fromber. But I still think even if they do, I don't feel intimidated
mhm.
per se. Not in the same way that, we have in years of the past with San Diego or especially LA. But you look at LA and this super team, and I mean, not just in the postseason, but what do we do to them in the regular season at times?
Yeah.
Um,
And I think it was even last year, right? I think it was 500 is what we split,
I think so. It was a split season series,
which
if I
is which is
remember right.
insane from a team that sold off just about all their big heavy,
Right.
heavy hitters. The Diamondbacks finished 80 and 82 last year. And we're talking
Yeah,
about them like, we had a 100 loss season.
you're
They
right.
finished one game under 500. So 90 wins to me is very much right in front of you.
It's just a question of is 90 wins going to be enough?
Yeah.
Um, this the National League is stacked.
Hmm.
Um, and you even look at some teams that were kind of fringe that are making moves to put themselves more in that discussion. Um, I mean, just looking at the Mets, I mean, they started as a disaster offseason, but now they went out and got Freddie Peralta,
Yeah.
and they've made some offensive moves that I really like.
Yeah, Bichette.
And they're another one of those teams that have players who are developing, who are going to be making more of an impact in Tong and their offense as well. It's scary on that front, and not that we play the Mets well anyway. The
Never.
Braves have kind of fallen back a little bit,
Yep.
but teams like the Marlins, the Nationals, who were almost like quote unquote rollover teams before, are going to be a little tougher now. Um, and the NL Central, Reds, Pirates, Cubs. I mean, even the Cardinals have a few guys where it might not be the easiest series in the world to play. Um, so I think that it's going to be a little tougher. Uh, but I think that the Diamondbacks are also not expecting it to be a walk in the park. And I think that they are very let down with what happened last year and the year before. And they're itching to get back to the playoffs, the guys who were on that roster. And the guys who haven't been are looking at that team and they're thinking, why isn't that us? Why not us? We had so many rookies on that team. The rookies on this team are thinking, why shouldn't it be us going to the playoffs this year? Why shouldn't it be us making a run to the World Series? Uh, and they look at the lineup, they look at some of the pitching, and they think, okay, we have a stud in Ryan Nelson at the front. Uh, Another year of development for Brandon Pfaadt, and we have Corbin Burns coming back in the back half, plus Merrill Kelly anchoring it. The high upside of Mike Soroka.
Hmm.
It's why couldn't we make another run?
Yeah, and if you get Eduardo Rodriguez to pitch like he did the last quarter of the season, He looked like his 2017, 2018, Boston self, the fastball
Even the
over changeup.
Tigers.
Yeah, even the Tigers, he started to look pretty good there. And I know Diamondbacks fans are upset. It's a high contract and he hasn't performed, right? And we don't have a good history with left-handed pitchers, unfortunately. But
Hmm.
I'm optimistic looking at that back half that he'll keep it up. The guy's been a workhorse in Major League Baseball for the better part of 8 years. It's once again, it's unfortunately you have the $20 million on the books, but it's high upside if you're looking compared to the previous seasons. Like if you get him, if you get Eduardo Rodriguez with a 4.1, 4.2 ERA for this season, like that's a huge leap from what he's been doing, and that's enough production to push yourself over the edge. Ryan Nelson looks fantastic if he keeps that up. He's got the second best pitch in Major League Baseball, which I don't think anybody was expecting. Um, Corbin Burns returning, Brandon Pfaadt. I know we've been talking about him for a little bit since 2023 of like when he's going to make that next step, when he's going to make that next step. Um, I, I keep saying this year is going to be his year. I think it is. I have a feeling it is. One of my other predictions is that he's going to touch 200 strikeouts this year. I think he can get there because he's been the healthy guy in the rotation. He's got some years on his back now. But this team looks good. I mean, it's you want to see more in the bullpen like we talked about earlier, but we were a game under 500, and I'm not saying we're not mediocre. We're not. We're a good baseball team, and I think we can
Hmm.
do good baseball team things with the team that we have now, regardless of what we do for the bullpen. Just in my opinion.
Right. And yeah, I'm kind of on your wavelength where I picked Brandon Pfaadt last year as a big breakout candidate, and
Mhm.
I wrote a whole bunch. I dove into his underlying metrics. I was like, oh, this looks really good. And then it was just he got hit hard, but he made
Yep.
some changes.
Yep.
And I think there is some more stuff to look positively on. And while I'm not gonna go ahead and jinx him, I'm gonna keep my distance from that call a little bit this time around. But I do like what I see from him, and I think that, another year of development. We're all big Brandon Pfaadt believers, I think. And the strikeouts are there, the durability is there, and that's really the foundation of what it takes to be a good pitcher.
Yeah, when he's on, he's on. I mean, he's throwing, one run ball and 11 strikeouts or whatever it is. It's you get 10 of those this year and some other mediocre starts, and you're looking at a guy that's hitting 200 innings,
Mm.
200 strikeouts, not giving
Yeah,
up
I
however
mean,
many home
down
runs he's
ballot
giving up.
Cy Young at his peak.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. He definitely has that mix. And if you followed him in the minor leagues at all, you
Mm.
would know he has that ability to be that kind of guy, where he's double digit strikeouts almost every start. Um,
Right.
with that in mind, so we kind of already talked about some of the division matchups. We touched on the Dodgers a little bit. We touched on the Mets a little bit. There's been a lot of news lately, a lot of stuff circulating around the spending in Major League Baseball. I always like to talk about this because everybody has a different perspective on it. I think I can't remember what the number is or what the salary is going to be for the Dodgers here. I know it's in the high 400 millions, for something that's ever been seen before. What are your thoughts? I mean, do you think that this is something that is sustainable? Do you think there's a way to work on this? I know money is not everything in Major League Baseball. Like I said, we saw a lot of that in 2023.
Sure.
But do you think something needs to be done about it?
First, I think my favorite anecdote that I found this off season, especially because of a lot of the D-backs discussions, is that Edwin Diaz is being paid more annually than Ketel Marte will be paid at any point in his contract. Um, so
Which
I
is
think
insane.
that is absurd.
Yeah.
Um, but just from a sustainability standpoint, I think part of the problem is that it is sustainable for the Dodgers and Mets. I mean, if you look at who owns them,
Yeah.
uh, they're basically ran by hedge funds or hedge fund
Yeah.
managers. So the money is there. It's almost a bottomless pit of okay, we'll spend whatever needs to be done to win. And I think both ownership groups are of that mindset where it's like, okay, either we win or we make our money back. And through the revenue generated by playoff competition and winning games, it almost pays for itself. And sure, maybe it doesn't quite make all the revenue back, but through advertisements, through the growing complex that the Mets are trying to make in Queens over there, and through whatever the Dodgers have set up right now with sponsorships and fan events and merchandising. It's I'm not exactly seeing where they're being bankrupted by their spending.
Yeah.
And certainly they feel the same way since they went out and got Kyle Tucker on top of Edwin Diaz on top of everything else that they have. Um, and I think the Mets feel similarly. David Stearns might not have loved Pete Alonso, which, is a personal choice of his. He didn't ink him
It's a,
to a big contract.
it's a weird one for him.
Um, and maybe he likes Bo Bichette more. He got Jorge Polanco. And he got Freddie Peralta, which is a huge move. So, I mean, in terms of spending, the Mets maybe have gone a little less overboard in recent years. I think you'd agree.
Yeah.
But I feel like the other teams, as well as even according to Jeff Passan or other reports, other players are starting to feel like almost there's no hope going into the year, and I don't think that there should be any feeling across the league that there is no hope going in. I don't think that's good for the sport. I don't think that's good for people, and I wouldn't say it's uh, bad for the sport to encourage ownership groups to spend money.
Hmm.
I don't think it's bad for the sport to give players the salaries that they deserve and that they earn. I think it's good to pay athletes a lot of money and to give them what they have earned and what they've practically given up their lives, their personal lives, their summers for as long as they can remember. Um, But I also don't think that it is right to have a team that is spending more on two players than entire teams' payrolls.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
I don't think that's okay. And I think that the Players Association, as well as players themselves, are going to make a big push, and it may cost us some baseball games, which I think is tragic.
Yeah, I agree. I think at this point it's a necessary evil. I love baseball to death, and I don't want to lose baseball games,
Mhm.
but I think unfortunately it's going to happen. I'm almost planning on converting my entire page to cover pickleball for 2027. So, um, but yeah, it's competitive balance has been something that's been floated in sports for such a long time, and every other sport has adopted it except for Major League Baseball. Um, and an idea that was interesting to me is. So obviously there is a competitive balance tax, right? And
Mhm.
teams like LA, teams like New York don't care. They'll blow the money through. It really doesn't bother them, right? It's like, okay, well now this contract just cost me this much, right? That's all they're really thinking.
Right.
Um, I think if you didn't want to do a salary cap, then you'd have to do something where revenue sharing is way larger than it is now, and there's more real world penalties than just money. Hey, if you go over this portion or you get to this apron, you don't have home field advantage for the rest of the postseason if you make it, or this, right? It's a little arcadey, a little convoluted, but if you're not going to do a salary cap, there has to be harsher penalties, in my opinion.
One which I saw, which I really, I thought, I mean, it's something that we have precedent for already is draft pick
Yeah,
uh, results. It's like, okay, if you're consistently above this level, you lose picks.
yeah,
And maybe they did get distributed, but I also feel like we shouldn't be rewarding bottom feeder teams
yeah.
with revenue sharing and with draft picks. I know that there's some sort of guidelines in place, but I still feel like it's not okay to be consistently feeding them despite their lack of efforts. And maybe we see the White Sox doing a little bit, maybe we see the A's spending a little bit, but is it really going above and beyond? I don't think so.
No.
Uh, I don't feel like they're really putting in what they could be to make their team great. I mean, the Pirates' biggest move is Ryan O'Hearn. Are you kidding me? Like, it's there needs to be something done for them as well. I feel like this isn't just a one-way thing, and I don't think anybody's saying that it's a one-way issue. But what I do feel like is that there needs to be some serious discussions about putting a formal structure in place that is meant to mitigate both sides of this issue.
Yeah, I think there definitely needs to be like a band, like this is the min, this is the max. Penalties could be the same for both, you lose a draft pick if you only spend $50 million this year. You lose a draft pick if you spend $350 million this year. Um, whatever it may be. Maybe that's what the CBA talks about, in their meetings is, every time they meet, they agree on a new band or whatever it is, right? But um, yeah, something competitively balanced needs to be done. Baseball, in my opinion, has always been more about chemistry than it's been about getting the good guys on the field. Guys like Brandon Pfaadt can come shove in the postseason when nobody's ever seen him. Andrew Saalfrank, nobody knew who he was. These guys can play like that without being paid $70 million a year. Um, it's an interesting approach. I'm curious to see what happens, and I think because it's such an interesting conversation, I think we will miss out on some baseball. We've missed out on baseball for a whole season for less back in the 90s. So I think it's going to be interesting. I don't want to lose baseball, but I'm kind of geared up for it. And if that's the case, maybe you and Aaron or me and you can go to a baseball field and reenact baseball moments for people to watch or something like
Yeah,
that.
we'll get the writers and content creators and we'll go out on the field.
Yeah,
We'll play some scrimmages, we'll
sure.
televise it.
Yeah, I'll throw my 75-mile-an-hour meatball for people to take a look at.
Oh man, come on, I hit tanks.
Oh yeah, I know.
So
Maybe yeah,
we'll
I've
get
seen it.
Jack Summers out there to pitch.
Yeah, perfect. He might be
That's
he
what we need.
might be one of those old Satchel Paige windups and
Oh,
take about 20 seconds to
he
deliver to the
throws
dish.
gas.
Oh,
Come
okay.
on.
I believe you. I believe you.
He's a have you met Jack? He's a tall man. He's got some force to put behind the ball, that's
All
for sure.
right. Get
But
Randy back out there.
I think that I think that in terms of losing baseball, nobody wants that. But for the better future of the sport, if we get a healthier game, if we get a more balanced game, if we get a more enjoyable game that is easier for the everyday fan that might not, I mean, right now, how many people in Pittsburgh are really joining up and saying, "Boy, I sure do love my Pirates and I want to go out to every single game." It's not happening.
Yeah.
And if we can get to a point where that can happen, I'm more than happy to sacrifice some games in 2027 to make that happen for the long term.
Yeah, there's an old school marketing strategy called peak on peak.
Mm,
Basically what it means is, teams like I don't know, like the Diamondbacks, right? They like to do giveaways on Father's Day, right? Or giveaways on Saturdays, right? So, you have a peak amount of people showing up. You're giving them a peak experience, right, to help boost the team from a marketing perspective. Um, I think it's the same from an executive marketing level for Major League Baseball, where it's like, look at the market in LA, look at the market in New York. We're going to build off of that. We're going to keep this thing rolling. And it's worked out very well for Major League Baseball from a revenue standpoint. I feel like the past 10 years has been a meteoric rise in baseball as far as viewership is concerned, as far as revenue coming in is concerned. Um, but yeah, I think at some point you got to kind of look and say, wow, this is kind of unfair, in a way.
mhm.
So. All right. Well, with that in mind, if we only have one season of baseball left ever, now would be the time to kind of let us know what your prediction is for this season. What do you think's going to happen this year? What do you
Oh
think we're
boy.
going to see? And I don't know. Where do you think the Diamondbacks will end up?
Um, let's see. Let me make sure that I'm not going too cookie cutter with this.
Yeah, you can give me a band if you want to save yourself a little bit. Give yourself something to fall back
Okay.
on. And don't tell me
Um,
0 to 100 wins, but maybe a more narrow band.
let's see. I will predict that Geez, is it even a bold prediction to say that like two teams will make it out of the NL West? I hope that it's the D-backs and Dodgers, but I'll say that I predict the Dodgers to be less successful than maybe publicly believed. I don't know. I still think that that roster is a lot of flash and not so well rounded, and you do end up using um, a lot of those utility and bench guys throughout the year.
Mm.
And I think that especially, I mean, back end of the bull or well, front end of the bullpen, as well as their outside guys are a little less talented than you may expect from a roster that's spending more than certain governments. Um, and then let's see, what's some other bold predictions? I think in terms of the Diamondbacks, I think that we're going to see uh I think that Hunter Cranton gets some closing opportunities. I think that'd be really
Hmm.
fun.
That would be really
Um,
interesting.
I think that we will see Mitch Bratt being the best rookie pitcher. I think that'd be cool.
Rookie of the Year campaign?
Ooh, I don't know about that, but I think
Too
in
bold?
terms of the Diamondbacks, I think that he may be the best rookie pitcher on the roster.
Okay.
Big fan. Yeah, why don't you take a turn? I'll try to think of some more.
Yeah, so just to put this in perspective with
Mm-hmm.
everyone, we already talked about kind of the Diamondbacks record being 80 and 82 last year, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
It's not abysmal from by any means. Um, they're only 13 games back behind LA. LA finished 93 and 69.
Mm,
They built this monster roster and they didn't even win 100 games. And I think
right.
maybe that goes to a testament of how tough the National League is becoming. But the Diamondbacks being 13 wins away essentially from an NL West title, which we haven't had in it feels like a millennia. Um, it's feasible. I don't think the Diamondbacks will get there just because of what's happening in LA. But I think
Mm-hmm.
when you're building teams like that, it doesn't bode well in the postseason because postseason is such a short stretch, and I think that's why we saw success in 23. I mean, we swept them, um, and I think teams like LA can be very streaky because of the talent that they have. Not saying they're not going to do well because it's the Dodgers and they've just spent 100 million cajillion dollars. So I think a prediction for me, I do think the Diamondbacks are that team that breaks through. On the National League side, I think the NL Central has gotten very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll see once again, kind of like we had last year, one NL West team, two NL Central teams, and I think the Diamondbacks will be competing. I don't think they'll be competing with San Diego, and I don't think they'll be competing with San Francisco, to be honest with you. I think towards the end of the season, we might be 5 or 6 games above them, just because I don't think they've made the moves to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel for San Diego, of course, with their ownership group, the passing of their owner, and all the litigation that they're under. I don't see themselves making a major move while they're under all
Mm-hmm.
that litigation. But then you look at, okay, who are the Diamondbacks going to go against? And it's, you know, the Brewers won the division, National League Central last year. You got the Cubs and the Reds, who I think people think are also favorites to make the wild card. You got one spot left. Phillies won the division for the NL East, so I think you're looking at, is it going to be the Diamondbacks or is it going to be the Mets? I think that's kind of where you're standing. Or is it going to be the Diamondbacks or is it going to be the Phillies? So I think it'll be a firefight towards the end there, like it always is with
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta for some reason, or New York or Philadelphia. It seems like always the ones that we're trying to fight. Um, so I would say the Diamondbacks are that third wild card team. That's kind of what I have on my radar. I think 90 wins is feasible. Um, there was two teams above 90 wins for the wild card last year for the National League. You had the Padres at 90 wins, and you had the Cubs at 92. The Reds came in at 83 wins, so I think 90 is still a good bar to set yourself up for. Um, as far as depth in the playoffs, I'm still worried about the bullpen slightly. I think the
Mm-hmm.
bullpen matters more than anything when it comes to the playoffs, especially when you chop your rotation down to usually the four guys. Um, so yeah, I would put the Diamondbacks at 90 wins. I'm giving them a third wild card. I'm giving them a confident third wild card. I can't really make a prediction until I see what they do with the bullpen this year, but I do like your prediction with was it Brat?
Mhm.
coming through and being for lack of better terms one hell of a rookie for us. I'm very excited to see what our young guys do this year. And I think of as far as rookie players go, I think you can see a collective probably like 5 to 10 war from all our rookie guys this year. That really helps us out.
Yeah.
So,
Here, I'll make another prediction. I think the Diamondbacks make the second wild card spot. Um,
oh,
I'm not too high on the Reds personally. And in terms of let's break it down. Let's say Dodgers, Brewers, Phillies as division winners. I'd post uh the Mets in the top wild card spot, and then I feel like the Diamondbacks and Cubs kind of battle out for that second one. And I would personally give it to the Diamondbacks, especially since the Cubs did just lose Kyle Tucker, and sure they added some other names, but I still like our roster more. So,
yeah, they added Alex Bregman, who I'm
mm,
curious how he's going to do this year. Got a huge contract, and I always like to see how players do after they get those big contracts to see how it would have played out for us.
Windy City as
Yeah,
I feel like Bregman's more of a doubles guy. I'm not really sure how that ballpark plays, but we'll see, you
yeah,
know.
we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting field, I think, this year, regardless.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I guess we'll just see what the Diamondbacks do. A lot of good names to
yeah.
look for. I think you and I are kind of in agreement. There's probably gonna be one more major league move. We'll
Mm,
see before spring training starts. Maybe it's a reunion with Max Scherzer. You never know. You get a guy like
right.
that still out there who still wants to pitch. Maybe you could get him for $6 million. Who knows? Maybe that's
The
what he wants.
the one thing I feel is that in terms of the starting rotation, I don't I don't know how how much they want to make another move there because right now you have Ryan Nelson, Brandon Pfaadt, Eduardo Rodriguez, Michael Soroka, and Merrill Kelly. Those are your five guys.
Yeah,
They do want to use Mike Soroka as a starter, so there kind of goes that flexibility, even though he was used as a reliever at the end of the year last year,
and was good.
um, and he was very good.
Yeah,
So I would say in terms of adding another starter at this point, I'm less positive on that. Maybe if an injury happens in spring training, they add another pitcher.
yeah,
Not to mention the fact that Corbin Burns is getting back late in the year, but the fact that I mean the odds that the whole rotation gets to that point healthy is just so low.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, in terms of that, I feel like starting pitcher is kind of less likely. But I mean they have a habit of surprising us.
Always do. Never. I don't think anybody expected Burns. I don't think anybody expected
Hmm.
Montgomery. Both great signings. Unfortunately, Montgomery didn't work out, but I mean, at the time, it was like, wow, we just picked up basically a starting pitcher to level three, starting pitcher to level two guy right before the season started.
Hmm.
So the Diamondbacks have ways of surprising us, and I don't think this year will be any different.
Right. So I don't know about you, but I came with a couple names of some guys in the minor league level that I'm excited to see develop.
Sure,
Um,
shoot him over.
so I just for the listeners, I have a couple names. You already mentioned one in Hayden Dirk, I think at some point. Really excited to see what he's able to do. Possibly even debut this year. Super exciting. My second name is Mason Marriott, who maybe a lot of Diamondbacks fans aren't
Hmm.
as familiar with, but
Hurt list
recent
here.
recent draftee, some injuries, but my goodness, that 2025 only 19 innings, but boy, 2.29 ERA. Year before that, uh, you have a 2.57 with Visalia. Also very limited sample, but really, really exciting name, super talented pitcher, an arm that I'm really excited to see. And he's a guy that can rack up some strikeouts.
Oh yeah,
Um, definitely not a guy who's going to debut soon, but somebody to keep an eye on. And my third name here, I know he's a little bit more, I guess, front forward since he was a higher draftee last year, but Patrick Forbes is one who I love his kit coming out of the draft. His fastball plays really nicely. He's got a nice pitch mix. And I just think like that frame too. I think that he's definitely a guy whose kit just I mean it just looks like it's gonna translate. So yeah, outside of Daniel Egan, just a couple more guys to keep an eye on in terms of arms.
Yeah, the Hillsborough Hops class of 2025, even though the season was not great, will go down in the history books of prospects. That pitching staff was disgusting all
Oh
year
man.
long. Um,
Yeah.
Fortunately, the Bats never got there, and they finished the very abysmal record. But not a reflection of them. I think just a reflection of all the unfortunate moves that had to be made up and down the minor leagues last year with all the injuries at the
Mhm.
major league level. So, with that in mind, Aaron, do you have anything else to add?
Oh no. I think that I just rattled off all my notes there at the very end, but it's I'm definitely excited to see what this team can do. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think this coming season is going to be an interesting one. The moves are not done yet. So just keep your phones on alert. If you're not following Aaron, make sure you're following Aaron. He'll send you some notifications for sure. I get them all the time. So um, but yeah, I think with that being said, I think we'll wrap up episode 6. Obviously, like I said, if you want to follow Aaron, go ahead and follow him over on X. He does a lot of good work over there. And of course, if you're listening to this, you're probably already following me. So,
Yeah, thank you so much.
of
And
course,
thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure. Love talking some ball and another great conversation.
always with you, Aaron. All right, we'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you.